Hello, friends. So, no surprise given the quarantine, I don't have a lot of things to do, so I figured I would make another vlog because I did have a lot of things in my mind that I wanted to talk about. But to clarify, this was not made the same time as the last vlog. I know I'm wearing the same outfit, which is a very comfy sweatshirt dress that I bought at Target. But anyway, continuing on, I guess the first thing I wanted to address was the impact of this quarantine on people who struggle with eating disorders of any kind. There was a BuzzFeed article about it, but let's be real, BuzzFeed can kind of be like sensational clickbait at this point. Every fucking word in the title is capitalized like it was a bad B movie. And it's like, I don't know, it's grown from like, I guess a few years back, you could argue it was like an underground source of news to now like what every Gen Z and some millennials get their news from. One of those things. But I did see an article they had posted talking about why this quarantine was hell for people who suffer from eating disorders. And as someone who has had an eating disorder from the age of 11, I did concur with that. And I just wanted to share my personal experiences with it. I believe I've talked about it in earlier vlogs. Not that I expect you to remember every aspect of my vlog, but those of you who know me especially know that from a young age I've dealt with not only an eating disorder, but body dysmorphia disorder, all sorts of things. I've had pretty much everything but bulimia. Um, it's it's hard to talk about, but I want to talk about it because I think it's an important thing to talk about. And even though I consider myself recovered, I want to make it very much known that it never really goes away. It's something that always stays with you. So even if you're recovered and you're aware of your actions and your behaviors and your thoughts, it's still something like when you're stuck in quarantine, with limited range and motion, you're like, should I eat this because I'm not moving a lot? This is going to make me fat. Or you finish a meal that was substantial, like say a bowl of pasta, and you're like, wow, I shouldn't have eaten that. That was too much. I'm going to get fat. It's that kind of mindset and that kind of thinking that stays with you. And I've been to numerous therapists. I've journaled, I've done everything. I've come as far as one can possibly come in recovery. And I'm okay. In a normal life, I'm okay in case I get distracted, I get busy, my routine keeps me going. But this pandemic has been very trying on me. It's been hard because, I still personally am someone who tries to work out 5 days a week, but I'm limited in what I can do here at the house. And I have my at home, high intensity circuits, but one of the things when you have an eating disorder is that you're under the impression that whatever you're doing isn't enough. And I'm self aware enough at this point to know that I can easily fall into that because, I'll do an hour workout, totally substantial, and I'll be sitting on my ass for like 4 hours because what else am I supposed to do during this? Like we're all locked down. I have Animal Crossing at my disposal. It's really easy to just get sucked in. And like the thought will pop up all of a sudden like, oh, you shouldn't be sitting on your ass right now. You should be doing something productive. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that one workout I did wasn't quite enough. And then I start to get so concerned about everything I'm eating, like it's like, okay, so I didn't move a lot today, so I need to only eat a salad for dinner. The thinking like that, where it's not exactly like, emblematic signs of like anorexia or an eating disorder, but more so um, signifiers of somebody who still, though recovered, is vulnerable to that kind of thinking. And it's something I've been dealing or struggling a lot with in these past days, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, especially here, because I feel like talking about it is going to help other people who are going through the same experience. whether this vlog touches 10 people or 10,000, more likely 10 people, but it's something that I've always been very passionate and vocal about. I don't shy away from talking about. And, it's when you're not really in contact with other people, you kind of get inside your own head. So it's been an ultimate test for me, but I'm okay. I just want everyone to know I'm okay, but I thought it was an important thing to address because, one, I'm a very honest person. I always want to be honest with you, but two, I want to speak about it for others who may be going through the same thing during this difficult time. And believe me, I know it's not just people who've experienced eating disorders that are going through a difficult time right now. Everybody's struggling because we're all stuck or confined to our house, or we're anxious because we have to go into work because we're essential workers and, risk our health and our welfare. It's absolutely insane to me, actually, that we're living through something like this because you couldn't ever fathom it unless you were over 100 years old, and you lived through the Spanish flu of 1917 to 1918, I believe. Could be a year off. But it's one of those things that just really makes you think. And so on these sort of deep topics of self-image and all that jazz, I wanted to also address, I don't know quite how to put it to proper words, but I guess self-image as a woman. I was just thinking when I was brushing my teeth, which is very random, I was thinking about when I was about 13, 14 years old. And as you all know, I'm a lesbian woman. I've known pretty much since I was young, but I was in denial for a while because we love internalized homophobia. But I've been out since, I would say it's been about 4 years, going on 5. But anyway, as a young preteen growing up in the late aughts of the 2000s, it was very different, which is also another crazy thing to me. Crazy in the good way that, queerness has become so much more acceptable. Because, when I was in middle school and high school, it was if you came out, it was kind of a death sentence. But I guess I'm dating myself. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that, I don't know, I was brushing my teeth, just doing my thing, and I got to thinking, as people like me often do, and I started thinking about when I was in middle school, particularly around the age of 13 or 14. And I think that's a very difficult age for women in particular, because you're coming into yourself. You go from being a little girl to suddenly being a woman. You have sexual desires, you have tits, you have all these hormones rushing in your brain at once. And I know for a fact that I was very strongly affected by this, and that I hit puberty pretty early. So I wanted attention. I wanted to be noticed because I wanted that validation. And I think validation is one of the, how do I put it? It goes away the more you mature, because the more you mature, the more you realize you don't need anybody else's validation. You only need your own. And obviously, you're good enough for yourself, but it takes time to come to that conclusion. So I'm not saying oh, why don't you realize that? Because I get it. I've been there. I've been through it. But when I was 13, 14, I was finally coming into myself. I was starting to get curvaceous. I was very pretty. I kind of had this ugly duckling to the swan sensation where my nose was too big for my face, and I had braces and acne and glasses, but glasses are a vogue again. We know this. But anyway, back in 2007, that wasn't the case, and I just remember going from being really awkward and unpopular and bullied in middle school to all of a sudden being attractive and having sex appeal. And when you're 13 and 14 and your brain isn't fully developed, and especially with the media that now more so than ever, but even back then was kind of promoting like the sexualization, the objectification of women. It's disgustingly, it's heartbreakingly easy for someone of that age, 13, 14, to just feel like their only purpose in life is to be a pretty woman or to be attractive in the eye of a male. And that's exactly what happened with me. I remember getting some attention from a certain male when I was 14 years old after going to an anime convention. And this is hard to talk about because I never talked about it before, but I believed I was in love at the time because he was giving me all this attention, and I liked it. I liked the attention a lot because no one had ever paid attention to me in that way. But being 14, I didn't see any red flags because I was 14. I was just happy that someone was paying fucking attention to me. And this was back in like 2009. And to think that it's so much worse today, considering like the climate we live in and the media and how all these like preteen girls on TikTok look like they're my age, and I'm like halfway to 30. Like, it's absurd, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. I fell into that trap, and I believed that I was in love because someone was giving me attention, and this went on thankfully only for about a year. It took me a few more years to realize that I was actually queer, because that's a whole nother story, which I will save for another vlog. But once I kind of got out of that, like, almost like you could almost equate it to like a honeymoon phase where I was so enamored of the attention, I realized I was like, this isn't normal, this isn't right. Like, I actually don't want anything to do with him. I do not want to fuck him at all. I have no interest in that. It was really a wake-up call, because it was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why was I talking to this guy? Why did I ever think it was okay as a 14-year-old for like a fucking 20-year-old to be talking to me and saying very inappropriate things? It's just, it was a real wake-up call. And so to this day, I get very defensive and protective of young women who find themselves in similar situations, because I think it's now more pervasive than ever, even more so than when I was that age, because we live in this culture where a lot of, I don't know, you're so young and impressionable, and this goes for men, but in a totally different aspect. Like, I'm not even gonna touch upon toxic masculinity in this, because that's a whole nother ballgame. But the media pushes these ideas and stereotypes and and visions of what you should aspire to become. And when you're like 14, 13, you're so young and impressionable, you see that and you believe that's the way you have to be. And it's worse now than it was in 2009. I can say that with certainty. But it's incredibly, I don't even know the word. I don't even have the words in English or Italian if I were to suddenly break out in Italian, or my very poor German. But it's absurd. And I have this maternal instinct for this more than anything else, where I want to protect every young girl from whatever age until the age of like 16, even 18, from creepy men who want to take advantage of them like that, because I've been there, and it's so fucked up. It really is. But I'm not really sure what point I was trying to make here about either of the things I've talked about tonight. Eating disorders, sexualization, objectification of women. I guess there doesn't always have to be a point. Like, it's not like we're in like a fucking high school English class, where the teacher's like, all right, now write me like a 5-page essay on the overlying theme of this. And maybe there is an overlying theme. If one of you ever found that, like, that's great. But I don't know. I'm just here talking, being myself, being a person, trying to communicate something across a medium to other people that could maybe help them. And it feels good, especially having been a communications major in college And I think one of the things that saved me a lot was making vlogs and just making these connections with people over the internet, because your social circle is so limited just face to face. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because you can certainly meet and make friendships with people who are very lovely, that within your radius, like within your local area. But a lot of the time it's so hard, especially when you're fucking weird like me. Like, how am I supposed to just go out and be like, hey, like, who likes old movies and Joan Crawford and is super fucking gay, but also is like a video game nerd who plays Resident Evil? Obviously, it's going to be rare to find someone who fits all those qualifications even online, but like locally, people are engrossed in their own thing. And another vlog I'd like to, attack eventually is how the internet went from being like a space for nerds only to like a space for everybody in the span of 10 years, which is kind of crazy, because I remember finding refuge in the internet when I was, gosh, like middle school, end of elementary school, because it was a place where nerds would congregate and gather and talk about nerdy stuff, and now everybody uses it. And I'm not bitter at all. I think it's great. I think it's great that everybody can use it and take something out of it. But it's so crazy. I think millennials more than anybody, and some of Gen Z, depending like what end you were born, we've experienced more change like quicker than any other generation, really, because it's just like that. The name escapes me. There's this law of technology that like it just gets faster and faster. Things get invented and change faster and faster, and it might be more drastic to look back at your parents, your grandparents. I don't know how old your parents are, mine are boomers, and thinking, oh wow, like when they were in elementary school, they were still using typewriters, and in their lifetime, they've gone from typewriters to like tiny cell phones, and that is wild. I admit it. Like it is remarkable in its own right, but at the same time, it's like in our lifetime, we've gone, or at least in my lifetime, being born in the 90s, I've gone from like dial-up internet and floppy disks to all of a sudden, people have cell phones and internet you can access through data anywhere, anytime, pretty much, and everybody's on there, and social media is pervasive, whereas it was a new budding thing in like 2004 when Mark Zuckerberg first made Facebook for his fucking college. It's crazy just to live through these times. So I guess with that, that's really all I had to say tonight. I thank you if you watch this. It means a lot, because I don't really do these vlogs for anybody in particular except for myself, because I don't know. I feel like I have something to say sometimes, not always, but I feel like it's important to document it and get it out there. And who knows, maybe it'll be really fun to look back on, 20, 30 years from now and be like, wow, like, look at me as a little wee youngin' making these vlogs. But one of the things I hope to talk about in the future in my vlogs is movies, more specifically old movies, because I don't believe I've done that yet, and I have so much to share, and I'm like already getting distracted looking in the background because I have like my Joan Crawford shit framed, and I want to delve into that, but this vlog is already 18 minutes long, so I'm gonna cut myself off. If you listened this much, thank you, I really appreciate it, and I hope you'll tune into the next vlog. So, goodbye, good night, everybody.